is RaceCity Speedway in Calgary, Alberta, and the site of the Molson Canadian Superbike Challenge, presented by Castrol Canada. Hello, everybody. I'm Pat Gonzalez, and welcome to another in our series of motorcycle road races. This time from the road course here at RaceCity Speedway in Calgary. This is the fourth of 6 events that will lead to the crowning of the 1989 Canadian Superbike champion. With me is Craig Hill, and Craig, this has been a very unpredictable series so far.
Oh, for sure, Pat. It's been up and down. We've had all sorts of leaders in the points race. Young Duhamel, he broke his leg in Japan. He's made a wise decision. He's not riding this weekend. Hopefully, he's going to get better and might be back in before the end of the season. I wouldn't want to see him ruin his career by falling off and doing something that's even worse. We've had Ruben McMurder, who's been always a challenger. He's had an up-and-down season, and as a matter of fact, he did something that nobody could have predicted that he would do. He threw the thing away at Shannonville. And Gary Goodfellow's getting more and more healthy, so, you know, you just can't pick a winner right at the moment. But the guy who's going like a rocket ship and has been there all year is Steve Crevier. He has the pole for today's race, but we haven't had a winner from the pole so far this year. It's been one of those kinds of seasons.
Well, round number 3 at Shannonville Motorsport Park was a bitter disappointment for some riders and a big morale booster for others. Ruben McMurder won the pole position after a monumental battle with Steve Crevier. McMurder picking up the 2 additional points, and that moved him into sole possession of second place at the time. But in the race, as you heard Craig say, McMurder crashed in the hairpin. Crevier was only challenged by Tommy Douglas until Douglas crashed, chasing him onto the front straightaway at Shannonville. So it was Crevier the clear winner. The battle for second then became the focus of the race. Gary Goodfellow and Michel Mercier on the Suzukis going back and forth. On the last lap, Mercier made a courageous dive on the inside, going into the hairpin to take second. He was able to hold it to the checkered flag. Gary Goodfellow turned in his best performance of the year in a third-place finish on the Don Nitz Suzuki.
So the point standings after yesterday's qualifying look like this. Crevier has 41, followed by Miguel Duhamel with 30. McMurder has 26. Goodfellow has 20. Then it's Mercier, Tommy Douglas, Craig Trinder, Steve Dick, American Jamie James, and in 10th, Nova Scotia's John Ramsey.
One of the big question marks here in Calgary is whether Tommy Douglas will be able to ride effectively here today. Tommy crashed in the Pro 600 production heat yesterday.
Well, he separated his shoulder, Pat. It's a re-injury of the thing that happened to him in England. This is a very tough racetrack to ride anyways, and I just wonder if Tommy's going to be capable of being up there or not.
Well, in Pro 600 production, where he crashed yesterday, he's won 2 of the previous 3 championship events. He's determined to try to hang on to his championship hopes, and he'll be starting right in the back with Steve Crevier, another one of our top riders who also crashed in yesterday's qualifying heat. We'll see how those 2 riders do, as well as all of the others, when we return for the start of our Pro 600 production final here at Calgary. Calgary, our first race of the afternoon, Pro 600 production. Local rider Jimmy DeWitt is on the pole, but he's got 2 riders right at the back of the grid who are going to be going to the front in a hurry. Steve Crevier, number 107, and Tommy Douglas, number 2. They have battled through the first 3 rounds of the championship. Now here's Craig Hill with the starting grid.
And on the front row, it's Calgary's Jim DeWitt, along with Royer, Nova Scotia's John Ramsey, and Dave Grummett. And you know, Pat, it's strange not to see either Douglas or Crevier's name up there. You know that this will be a real test for Douglas's separated shoulder.
There's Jimmy DeWitt, number 16, who goes from the pole. DeWitt on the Honda. He will lead them on the straightaway. 85, Denny Royer. Here comes Tommy Douglas, number 2. He has picked up several positions on the straightaway, and you're on board with Tommy Douglas, the Sony Handycam, providing these tremendous pictures as Douglas has moved up into the top 5 on the straightaway. There's your leader, 85, Denny Royer, as they break at the end of the straightaway going into turn 1. It is 85, Royer, your leader. Number 16, DeWitt running in the second place position. McKinley, number 61, is third. Then 10, David Grummett in fourth, and Tommy Douglas, what a charge. He runs in the 5th place spot.
Oh, Pat, there's a rider off at the end of the straightaway, and it's Frank Murray from Red Deer, Alberta.
You're on board with Tommy Douglas as he charges up through the field. There you can see just ahead of Douglas as he comes up now to challenge for that 4th place position. David Grummett still running in 4th. Up front, DeWitt number 16 and Royer 85 continue to go at it. Royer weaving back and forth on the back section, trying to break the draft of DeWitt.
Well, Pat, you know that these 2 lead riders They're very aware how important the draft is on RaceCity Speedway's long drag strip straights. And Royer doesn't want to give DeWitt any unnecessary advantage at all.
Jimmy DeWitt to the inside of Denny Royer. He just could not get around DeWitt. Right there, just a couple of bike lengths back off of Royer's machine as they go onto that drag strip straightaway that you talked about, Craig. There's Tommy Douglas. He has taken over third on the Dicom Express Yamaha. Then 61, Dwight McKinley runs fourth. Steve Crevier is back in fifth at the end of the straightaway. DeWitt late breaking into turn one. He will close it up again on Denny Royer. This, of course, is Jimmy DeWitt's home track. He races regularly here at RaceCity Speedway. And now Crevier has moved around McKinley. And Steve Crevier now has taken over the fourth place position. McKinley runs fifth. Number 10, David Grummett, is sixth. There's 99, John Ramsey, back in the seventh place position. So some very, very close racing all the way through the top 10 as the riders come out of the chicane and head up the back section. Again, DeWitt right there with Royer to within a bike length. Tommy Douglas continues to close on both of those riders as they go through the carousel.
There's the onboard shot from Douglas's Yamaha, and look at this, he just walks right by DeWitt. What a difference those extra revs make here at RaceCity. And earlier, I asked Tommy if the damaged shoulder would be a hindrance.
Yeah, I think in the Superbike race it will be a hindrance, but in the 600 race, seeing as both of us are starting from the back of the pack, I don't think either of us will win the race. We'll have to see, but I think I can hold on to the 600 anyway.
Well, Tommy's been doing a great job of holding on to the 600, and Craig, I don't know about not winning because Tommy is right there in second, and he's challenging 85, Denny Royer, the leader. Here is the win, and Crevier ran off out of the grass. He's up in a third. Crevier now motioning DeWitt to go by. Here is Jimmy DeWitt. Crevier did definitely cut across the chicane. DeWitt and Crevier side by side as DeWitt appeared to reach out and touch Crevier's machine as he went by. 85, Denny Royer, your leader. Number 2, Tommy Douglas in second, and Jimmy DeWitt, the only Honda rider to run up front here with Crevier, Douglas, and Royer, who are all on the Yamaha machines. And Craig, I think it's simply track knowledge because Jimmy DeWitt does run several times here at RaceCity in the year. And earlier I had a chance to ask him how his Honda would stack up against the Yamahas.
The Honda that I've got is a 1989 CBR 600. It's been pretty well set up for this track. The FZ Yamahas are pulling really good, has been shown even from the beginning of the season from Daytona. They've been doing really well at all the circuits in Canada and in the United States, so we're looking at a really good competition here today.
And there's a great competition, but it doesn't involve DeWitt, Pat, as Royer, Douglas, and Crevier, all on Yamahas, have pulled away from him, and they're going after the win.
The three riders almost side by side on the back straightaway. Royer, your leader, Crevier in a second. Tommy Douglas being pushed back into third, and we've got just a few feet separating the top three riders as they run it up into the carousel. Here's Crevier up to the outside. Douglas makes the dive in on the inside, and Crevier slices through into the second place position. The three riders just inches apart as they went through the carousel. Now they string out just a little bit as they try to pick up on each other's draft. There are the standings. Royer, your leader, Crevier, Douglas, DeWitt, and David Grummett round out the top 5. Then it's John Ramsey, David Schobloom, Dwight McKinley, Darrell Fletcher, and Miss Tony Sharpless. You're on board with Douglas as he tries to chase down Denny Royer. Royer now in his second year of professional road racing. He was one of the top amateur riders a couple of years ago. And Royer turning in perhaps his best ride of the year, staying right with Crevier and Douglas. There is DeWitt, number 16, a little bit further back on the Honda. And Craig, DeWitt appears to be losing the battle. He just does not have the horsepower to stay with these three very fast Yamaha 600s.
Well, I think that's a fact, Pat. These things just got more RPMs down the straightaway, and they're drafting each other, and they're gradually pulling away.
Not much separating these top three riders as they come onto that drag strip straightaway. Now you can see just how equally matched these machines are. Royer, 85, has been weaving back and forth trying to break the draft of Douglas, but Douglas is right there. He gets sucked along by the draft, and now we'll try to take the lead as we're on the last lap going into turn 1. Tommy Douglas has come through into the lead with a brilliant draft and slingshot pass going into turn 1.
And what an achievement by this Quebec rider, Pat. This guy must be muscling the machine around with an unbelievable amount of pain. But remember, he, like Crevier, he's come all the way from the back of the grid to take over first spot.
Craig, I think once they got out there racing, Tommy Douglas put the pain and the aggravation of that shoulder behind him. There is Crevier into the second place position as he moves around Denny Royer. Royer back down to the inside. He will retake the number 2 spot. Tommy Douglas, number 2, your race leader, out of the chicane for the final time. Royer and Crevier still hotly contesting the number 2 spot. Into the carousel, Tommy Douglas with enough of a cushion and just 2 corners to go that it looks like he will win the race he did not think he could win as he comes through into the final turn now. The checkered flag will be out, and Tommy Douglas will win the Pro 600 production final. There is Royer and Crevier.
And a great win for Tommy Douglas. And there are the final standings, with Douglas winning and retaining his championship lead over Crevier, and a great ride for Royer. Then it's Crevier, DeWitt, Grummett, Ramsey in 6, Fletcher, Schobloom, McKinley, and a good result for Tony Sharpless. And we'll be back with the Superbikes right after this.
Way in Calgary, the motorcycles are out on the starting grid for the start of our Superbike feature. The weather is of some concern. There's a light rain falling right now. And here this afternoon, Steve Crevier will try to become the first rider to win the pole position and also win a Superbike feature in 1989. Now here's Craig Hill with the starting grid.
Thanks, Pat. And on that pole, and this is his second pole position in 4 Superbike races, is Steve Crevier. Alongside of him is the 88 Superbike champion, Ruben McMurder, on the RC30. Next, it's Michel Mercier, another ex-Superbike champion, and Michel's on a Suzuki. And completing the front row is fellow Suzuki rider, formerly from New Zealand, Gary Goodfellow.
2 more Suzuki machines sit in row number 2 as Steve Dick and Craig Trinder will start in the second row along with Darrell Fletcher on the Honda. Row 3, it's Norm Murphy on the Kawasaki, Murray Cliff, Jeff Gaynor, and Reg Down. The 4th row, John Ramsey, Lawrence Bolton, and Benoit Pilon. The 5th row, Ralph Winnett, Derek Sandlands from Calgary, and Steve Mckissock. Gary Goodfellow, number 8, Michel Mercier, 11. There's defending champion McMurder as Steve Crevier, the pole sitter, revs up that Yamaha OW01, and we're away in Calgary. 107, Crevier gets off to a good start. Here comes Gary Goodfellow, and then it was 57 there, Darrell Fletcher. He almost ran into Trinder. Goodfellow outbreaking Crevier into turn 1. A brilliant move by Gary Goodfellow as he goes out in front. It's 107, Crevier in second. Number 1, McMurder runs third. Then 11, Mercier in fourth. 100, Steve Dick runs back in the 5th place position, and then Darrell Fletcher on the ex-Gary Goodfellow Honda. Steve Crevier, 107, who had a great run here in qualifying to take the Michelin pole position, going right after Gary Goodfellow on the Suzuki. Goodie off very quickly as the riders head up through the chicane here now for the first time. McMurder looks down to the inside of Crevier, but he can't make the pass, and the running order will stay the same as they head up onto the back straightaway. There was 87 Murphy. Now Crevier pulls up alongside of Goodfellow. Steve Crevier takes the lead on the back straightaway. Going into the carousel now, the order is 107, Crevier your leader. 8, Gary Goodfellow in second. Then number 1, McMurder in third, followed closely by 11, Michel Mercier, and then it is still Steve Dick back in the 5th place position. Right now, Tommy runs back in the 8th place position as we look at the lead battle. It is a good one. 107, Crevier, Goodfellow number 8, McMurder number 1, and then 11, Mercier. The 4 riders running right in each other's tire tracks, and the front-running 4 move out of the chicane. They have moved away now from the number 100 machine of Steve Dick, who's having his problems staying up front with the 4 riders who started on the front row. They were the 4 fastest out of qualifying. Crevier, 107 on the Yamaha, 8 Goodfellow, then number 1 McMurder on the Honda, and 2-time Canadian Superbike champion Michel Mercier, as Mercier now has moved around McMurder on the straightaway. Michel Mercier in a third. Here comes McMurder right back at him on the inside, and McMurder will take over the 3rd place position going into turn 1. McMurder worked the draft beautifully on the straightaway to retake that 3rd place spot after Mercier had got around on the straightaway. And now McMurder closes on the number 8 machine of Gary Goodfellow. So the battle here now is for the number 2 spot as Steve Crevier, 107, continues to lead. Here is McMurder up alongside of Goodfellow, and McMurder with a nice pass going into the chicane as he takes over the 2nd place position. So it is 107 Crevier, now your leader. Number 1 McMurder in second, then 8 Goodfellow third, 11 Mercier fourth, 100 Steve Dick still trying to hang in there with the other 4 riders as they head up into the carousel. It is Crevier, McMurder, Gary Goodfellow, and then Michel Mercier, as Mercier has closed now on Goodfellow on the drag strip straightaway, and he pulls up alongside. And the former Canadian champion will take over that 3rd place position as they break going into turn number 1. Michel with a lovely move there on Goodfellow. And you know, Michel is working with a brand new crew this year. And I think his second place finish at Shannonville during round number 3 was a big confidence booster for him. And he's showing it here at Calgary.
Yeah, but remember, Pat, Goody's been riding hurt all season. He had several major crashes over the past 2 years. And it's almost as if he hasn't allowed his body to heal properly. There are the standings with Crevier in front, followed by McMurder. Mercier, Goodfellow, and Steve Dick has moved into 5th. Then it's Darrell Fletcher having a good ride, followed by Trinder, Douglas, Murphy, and 228 Jeff Gaynor. And Pat, you had a chance earlier to visit with Norm Murphy to find out more about his '89 Kawasaki.
Norm Murphy's brand new Kawasaki ZX7 had some problems through the first 2 rounds of the national championships. The team failed to score points at Sanair or Shubenacadie. But the Kawasaki effort came together at Shannonville during round number 3, where Norm scored a fine 6th place finish for his first championship points of the year. And Norm, you've got to be pleased the way the program is starting to come around now.
Yes, it's finally starting to come our way, Pat. We've really been delayed this year on the machine coming late, and we've really had a problem with getting performance parts, which are our biggest handicap. But my team, Weldrite Racing, and my mechanic Harold from Wally Racing has been in contact with Rob Muzzy of the States. And he's been a great help to us. We're always talking with him, and he lets us know what's good for the bike and what's bad for the bike, and it's been a really good helping hand for Harold.
That Kawasaki has won an American National Superbike race this year. Has that been an encouragement to the team that this bike does have the potential to win and run up front?
Yes, indeed. I was really happy to see their bike win the race. I know that we also have a problem with the weight on the bikes, and it seems that once you get the weight down and get some power in it, they will work for us.
Well, the Kawasaki ZX7 continues to get faster at each national, and Murphy, when he heads back to Shannonville for the Superbike finale at the end of the season, that could be his best shot at a win this year. Norm Murphy runs in the 9th place position as we look at the battle for the lead. 107 Crevier, and McMurder now works the draft on the straightaway. Crevier looks around. McMurder is right there. He pulls up alongside. Hard braking into turn 1 at the end of the straightaway, down through the gearbox, and McMurder will take the lead on his Honda RC30. Ruben McMurder goes out in front, still looking for his first big Superbike win this year. He finished 3rd at Sanair during the opener, lost the race at Shubenacadie after Miguel Duhamel got around in the very last corner, and of course had that disappointing crash at Shannonville. But here at Calgary, he has put that Honda out in front. 107 Crevier runs in the number 2 spot. The battle for 3rd has been a good one between Michel Mercier and Gary Goodfellow.
And remember, Pat, Ruben needs a win here at Calgary in order to keep his Canadian championship hopes alive for '89, as he was 13 points behind Crevier coming into this race. He needs this win.
McMurder, your leader, into the carousel, but only 3 or 4 bike lengths separating the front-running 2 riders. In the opening laps, it was a 5-rider race up front, but neither Michel Mercier, Gary Goodfellow, or Steve Dick have been able to stay on the very hot pace being turned in by Crevier and McMurder. A little bit further back, we look at the battle for 6th, and it is another good one. 57, Darrell Fletcher on the Honda, and number 5 there on that red Suzuki is Craig Trinder, that motorcycle puffing some ominous blue smoke. Trinder, of course, a crasher as well at Shannonville during round number 3, and his crew have worked some long hours to get that machine together, and there is Trinder going through into 6th. Fletcher trying to take it right back.
And a great run by Trinder, and here are the standings with McMurder, Crevier, Mercier, Goodfellow, Steve Dick, Trinder, Fletcher, Douglas, Murphy, Jeff Gaynor, and we'll be back with the conclusion of the Molson Canadian Superbike Challenge right after this.
Canadian Superbike Challenge presented by Castro Canada. I'm Pat Gonzalez along with Craig Hill, and that's the last lap being displayed to the leader, Ruben McMurder, as he leads Steve Crevier. Here's your 3rd place rider, 11, Michel Mercier, followed by number 8, Gary Goodfellow. They have had a monumental battle all race long for that 3rd place position. There is McMurder, your leader, as he heads into the chicane now for the final time. Crevier still several bike lengths back. And at the moment, McMurder, who was denied a victory during round number 2 at Shubenacadie when Miguel Duhamel got around in the last corner, right now leading Steve Crevier by a pretty good margin as they head into the carousel. Crevier is really going to have to pull out all the stops if he's going to catch McMurder. But right now, McMurder looking very strong on that Honda RC30. As he comes through the final corner, he'll be on the drag strip straight away. The checkered flag will be out. McMurder takes a quick check over the left shoulder, There's the checkered flag, and the Honda rider, McMurder, has won the 4th round in the national championship. Crevier in second. There was Goodfellow up for third. Mercier will finish fourth.
And it's final. Ruben McMurder wins the Molson Canadian Superbike Challenge here in Calgary, with Crevier second, and with 12 points and 2 more races separating these two, it's going to be quite a showdown. Goodfellow was third, followed by Mercier, Steve Dick, Fletcher, Trinder, Murphy, Douglas, and Jeff Gaynor, with his best finish so far in '89.
And there's a happy winner, Ruben McMurder, who's back in contention for the championship, the Castrol Point Fund, and the new Suzuki Swift automobile that'll go to this year's Superbike champion. We'll see you next week from Westwood Motorsport Park in Coquitlam, British Columbia.